Terminator Zero is a new Terminator anime TV show directed by Masashi Kudo. In Japan, Malcolm Lee has been developing another AI system that is intended to compete with Skynet. As Judgment Day approaches in 1997, Lee finds himself and his 3 children pursued by an unknown robot assassin. If you saw my reviews for the first 2 Terminator films, you know that I absolutely adore them. I think they're some of the best sci-fi films ever created, with some of the best practical and best visual effects being put on screen, and have really relevant themes about playing God, tampering with the unknown, and themes of family woven within this terrible event that's occurred between a mother, father, and their son. All of that, I think, meshed together to create the perfect duology. And since then, it has been miss after miss. The best sequel after Terminator 2 has been Salvation. I still pretty much enjoy that film, but even that movie doesn't hold a candle to the original 2. And I haven't seen the Sarah Connor Chronicles show. I haven't had time to watch that, though I did hear it's really good. It never reached those same heights in terms of popularity as the first 2. In fact, at least around my space of Terminator fans and people that I know, they never really heard about that show. It's kind of an unknown one. But now we're living in a day where anime is really popular. Dragon Ball is really popular. You got My Hero Academia still running. Dan to Dan is the next thing. There's so much popular anime now that's becoming widespread. Everyone knows about anime at this point. It's not a minuscule thing anymore. It's now ingrained into pop culture, the shows and the movies especially. And now Terminator is taking a jab at the anime forefront, and I was interested in that. And when I heard that the show was going to take an approach similar to that of the original film, I was very intrigued. Not since the original film has a Terminator felt like it has came straight out of a horror film. That is until this anime. Terminator Zero is brutal. It is violent, it is bloody, and unapologetically so. And I really admire the show for having the balls to go for some really gnarly kills that very much earn the mature rating. This is the original look and feel of the original Terminator. This horrifying robot assassin that's sent out to kill you and is going to do whatever it can to achieve its mission. And I just found myself floored with the way the Terminator is portrayed here as this deadly monster, almost like a Jason Voorhees type killer. He was beautifully portrayed here with its mannerisms, with the way it moves, and the various designs this Terminator goes for in terms of it trying to blend in or just looking like it's eroding but still looking like a badass. This Terminator was awesome, and I love that the show did not go for the typical approach where it's supposed to sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger or look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, it just looks like a really terrifying looking person that can still fit into the real world, but has a sense of tension, a sense of fear within it, something that is uncanny, something that is not human. And that is what I loved about the way the Terminator is portrayed here. It felt scary and intense. But the Terminator itself is not the only thing that makes this show as good as it is, or even the violence. I think the story was actually something to be invested in. Something that I was very tired of the previous few films from before was that it decided to go for the same template that Terminator 2 laid out. A Terminator sent back in time to protect someone else from another Terminator, and then they bond with that Terminator protector, and that Terminator protector risks its life and sacrifices itself to save the day. And you might get a few changes here and there, but for the most part, these movies follow the same template. Terminator 3, Terminator Genesis, Terminator Dark Fate, and the only one that decided to do something different nobody watched. Oh my goodness, I feel so bad for you, Salvation. You are not that bad, okay? You will always have a special place in my heart. But finally, we're getting a story that felt new and refreshing. While there are elements of those same tropes from previous films implemented here, they don't feel as much in your face as the previous films have decided to structure its story. The structure of the story felt unique. It felt different. And there is enough twists and turns here to make it feel different and to bring out different emotions, to follow different storylines. The characters in this show feel different, and they have different story arcs than just learning what it means to be human or to be closer as a family unit or just following the Connors. We're following completely new characters, a completely new protector, and there's so much done with these characters that are just too spoiler heavy for me to really dive into. But I will say that the way these characters were portrayed here was realistic. It felt raw. They felt like they can kick a lot of ass while taking just as much damage from the Terminator as they bring much damage to Terminator itself. It always felt like the characters, even when they're one step ahead, the Terminator is 2 more steps ahead of them, and it felt like they really are in a hopeless situation. And the character Malcolm Lee, who is responsible for this AI program called Kiriko, who is eventually going to try and do some things and try to fight back against Skynet. I found that plotline to be pretty interesting, as it's basically a whole debate between a person and AI and how humanity needs to have a chance of living, of going on further. And Kiriko and Malcolm always have this debate going on where one has a point over the other, and it's always pretty interesting. Now, if I were to have any problems with this plotline, is that I felt like there could have been a few more questions to be asked to make some moments hit even harder. And I felt like some of the questions that were asked felt like the most obvious questions with the most obvious answers, and it can sometimes feel like a bit of padding. And sometimes the children's storyline can be a bit overdone. Like the children, I felt like could have been cut down just a tiny bit. Just take out some of the unnecessary banter in the beginning and try to get straight into the action. Felt like some of what the kids did in the first act of the show felt like it was just padding out and just focusing on just acting like kids. But if we do not get a lot of focus on them, then a lot of emotional moments later on will not hit as hard as they do. I think the show, at the end of the day, does a good job at fleshing these kids out and making you understand their ploy and purpose in the story. The animation is also really good. While there are elements of 3D animation here in the show, for the most part it is hand-drawn, and I think it is visually really good looking. The way the Terminator moves around and is portrayed here felt scary, and the whole atmosphere of the show and how it shoots its Terminator scenes and action sequences, I think was really awesome. From the visceral car chase in the middle of the show to the police shootout, there's a number of fantastic Terminator action sequences here that is going to please a lot of hardcore Terminator fans. All in all, I have to say Terminator Zero was a pleasant surprise. It's been a long time since I enjoyed anything Terminator related, and a long time since I loved anything Terminator related. Not since Terminator 2 have I loved something out of this franchise. That is until Terminator Zero. While it is not perfect and doesn't really live up to the first two in terms of its storytelling, as it can feel like it can pad out for a bit of time and feel like it can drag. There's a few pacing issues here, even implementing some plot points that is a bit too similar to the original films at times. For the most part, the characters are investing, the themes are intriguing and interesting to explore. There's some biblical elements mixed in here, more so than in the first two films, that make the story a lot more interesting to think about and talk about. Especially the action is visceral and bloody. It is scary once again. This is everything I could have wanted from a Terminator show, especially a Terminator anime. I'm going to give Terminator Zero an A-. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, and I will see you guys next time.